Hello everybody and welcome to a new edition of Strange Times. I'm your host, Leopoldo Pérez Obregón, and as always, here we feature scholars to talk about the things that they are confused about, and then we go over some confusions of my own about the topics they know very well. As you know, part of the chaos that we are living today is that we don't have good curation of information, so every piece of news seems to be equal to the other, and before, this was a central role that was fulfilled by journalists. Nowadays, well, there are many questions around this issue, so I brought two amazing experts. Please welcome Roberta Carlini and Iva Nenadic. Welcome to Strange Times. How are you doing? No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So we start directly with the premise of the show, which is to talk about our respective confusions. So, what are you confused about? You can jump in whoever of you prefer. If you have a confusion that is non-research related, even better. We appreciate chaos here.
I'm not sure what is this related to, but what I've been thinking a lot about lately and what really confuses me is this self-destructive nature of human nature. So I think there is this self-preserving aspect of human nature, but then there is also very strong self-destructive. And if you speak of strange times or the times in which we live, I can't not to ask this question. So to me it's a relevant question both on an individual level. So why are we destroying ourselves with unhealthy habits, with working too much, different things, but then also as a society, as a group of people deciding or living together, we seem to be repeating same mistakes over and over again, learning very little from historical experiences, and being really self-destructive. And so I'm wondering why are we choosing people that we choose to lead us?
Oh, what a big question. I think I have probably a philosophical thing here, but do you think that we are heading for destruction, or this is a cycle where we are learning into a collective situation? Because sometimes there's a rationality of the individual that is not the same as the rationality that we are collectively heading to some place that we don't know.
So if I connect here humanity and our field of expertise that you opened with, so the information ecosystem, there is this split in thinking between destruction and creative disruption.
Okay.
So it can kind of probably be both, and I think we can find arguments for both sides. So I'm completely unsure. This is why I'm curious about this. I see a lot of creativity and creative development, and I see a lot of humanity around us, but I also see a lot of destruction, too much.
Certainly. And you, Roberta, what are you confused about?
No, I'm puzzled because you guys started with very high-profile questions, philosophical questions. So, okay, what I'm confused about. I'm confused about this. We with Iva, we work in the Center for Media Pluralism and Media Freedom. So I'm a journalist myself and a researcher in the field of journalism, so all my time is devoted to find and to investigate the conditions to preserve freedom of the press, freedom of expression, media pluralism, in my case from the financing money side. No? Okay, so sometimes we see and read some pieces of journalism that are so bad, and so how can I say? It is not just that they are false, that they lie, that they are not curated, that they are partisan, that they are pretending to have a public function but serving private interests. So I'm confused about the thing that sometimes I wonder, why should we defend the press if the press doesn't deserve it?
That's a fair question. Why do we defend the press if the press doesn't defend our interests, like the public interest of defending truth? Could be a way to think about this. And I don't know, Roberta, the thing that, because we were talking about this also before, and the difficulty of your question, in my opinion, is that populists will use the same argument to destroy the press. They will say journalists are all liars, and then they will attack the press. So how do we make the distinction on this? Do you think do you have mechanisms?
Easy question.
Do we have mechanisms? Do you have easy answers, Iva?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there are different struggles here, right? I mean, journalism has failed miserably in many circumstances throughout the history, and media organizations. So I think also we need to distinguish a little bit between the media organizations and journalists or journalism, because the way journalists work and the way journalism works, it's still predominantly within the media organizations. But then there is a lot of tension and struggle. So the first potential undue influence that can come to journalists can actually, and very often, comes from the very owners of the media or the way the media are structured. And so the very structures of media organizations can be harmful for journalism in a sense that throughout the history, journalism was very elite institution, was not very representative, was lacking women, especially in management roles, was lacking different social groups, which was reflected, of course, in the content. And so I think this also contributed to this unpleasant situation where journalism finds itself today. So it is an economic struggle that lowered down the quality, but it's also like this lack of representativeness, which made the institution like really, really weak in the eyes of the public, who they should serve. And so it's difficult to make a case for someone that public doesn't recognize,
of course,
as relevant. And then it's very easy for politicians to kick this dying animal while it's on the ground and to completely destroy them, because by destroying journalism or by discrediting journalism, they are discrediting or killing or destroying, I'm using very heavy words here, but we're not far from that reality, an accountability mechanism in democracy. So of course it's in the interest of politicians to do that. And there is this profound paradox that politicians are tasked with protecting journalism, so to providing something that we call in the policy framework enabling environment for journalists to operate safely, economically, physically. Digital safety is also a big thing in this. But at the same time, it's not in political interest of most politicians to have strong press.
Yeah, and I think that also we have to consider that, okay, the populists and also the common trend at the moment is that attack the press, no? Against the press, for press I mean media, of course, not the physical printing. So I think that we have to resist to the idea of because we in the journalists are the victims of this attack, we are always right. No, we have to be accountable, and it is not that every kind of journalism, true journalism deserves protection. And there is this paradox that Iva was highlighting, but there is also another paradox that at the beginning of the internet era, there was this idea that everything would have been easier. The audiences were just a click away, and widespread dissemination of the news. And this is not, it is clear that this has not been the case, but there has also been a race to the bottom to mimetize, to mirror what the social media were doing, and how to attract the attention in the same way in which the social media do. And now I think that it's clear that professional journalism has to be professional. This doesn't mean that just the traditional mainstream organizations deserve protection. They often have been the more responsible for this race to the bottom, but if you want the media protection, the media status, the media privilege, let's say, you have to deserve it. That is not to it is not an ideological stance, but it is to respect some standards and some transparency and accountability and
institutional values. You would say.
But also now you have to be accountable to your public. You are not the journalist that was, how can I say, it was a top-down relationship, and now it's not.
Meaning like the media will monitor that the journalist doesn't lie, all of these things in the past, right?
I mean that now audience can monitor that journalists don't lie, but it is also very difficult for journalists because you have to stick to your version and to your job, even though it can be not something that remunerates you with clicks, with a large audience.
I have so many questions, but first I'm going to react with my framework to understand the world, which is that I'm a lawyer by training. And when I learned way back in the university about freedom of expression, I remember there was these discussions and the liberal framework about thinking about these issues, which is you need to let ideas compete and the truth will prevail. And then you have to intervene as less as possible. Then, for example, in the case of Argentina, I studied there, we take a lot from the US model. So the doctrine that was at some point settled in the Argentinian constitutional law was the doctrine of, in Spanish you will call real malicia, like actual malice, which means that if you sue a journalist to make them liable, you need to prove that they knew that they were saying a lie. That is very costly. And now it seems that all of those standards, to me, they have been thrown out the window. Because now you can say, how are you even going to police so many people saying random things? Like, for example, people that say, I'm doing a random example, flat Earth. They know that Earth is flat. Probably it doesn't damage anyone, but on other stuff, it's far more complex. So I think that the legal standards to think about this, the law doesn't seem to be helping on this. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Courts and media.
Yes. Yes, because we can't use what would be the good expression. I think we are really stuck in our frames of the past, and we are trying to squeeze the new world into those frames, and it just doesn't fit. And this is where the problem is. So if you think of freedom of expression, it is a constitutional value, it's the highest democratic value, but it's also, there is something that in the literature is called the paradox of democracy. We are using paradoxes quite a lot in this chat. Paradox of democracy, where the more communication, the more open the communication space is, the more demagoguery, the more misinformation, the more BS, if I can use these kind of words in the,
you can say
in
whatever.
The program,
Totally.
Bullshit will fly around, right? Because it's just, it comes by default, by design, because everyone can speak. People who know and who know less, people with good intentions, people with bad intentions. Someone will share misinformation because they genuinely believe it, or...
But also, to me, something that is crazy. Sometimes you talk with regular folks and they are like, now, because everybody now can talk, so this is more democratic. I don't know if it's more democratic, because we are publishing in the media of Mark Zuckerberg, YouTube even, or Google, whatever. These are our editors. And I don't know, for example, if I say some words like against the tech oligarchs, maybe there's an AI detecting and throwing your content down. I don't know. It starts to arise questions that we cannot even check how they slow down or they push forward certain ideas. I think there's been a lot of research about that.
This
right?
is probably one of the biggest struggles of research. So we are using different methods to try to understand at least the extent of this kind of behavior. So what we're speaking about here is the design. So who designs that key infrastructure of the information ecosystem nowadays? And you rightly pointed this out, that it's the big tech companies, which are handful, and they're mostly American or the Chinese, if we speak of European context, or Latin America, for example. Like, we don't have diversity of companies in that field. We have few of them. And we also have strong information asymmetry. So we have no idea how they do things behind the walls. We know something, but we don't know enough. And then, they do what serves their business model, not what serves the public interest. And I think the voices of individuals, influential individuals, we can call them influencers, newsfluencers, podcasters, they are heating the debate. They may not be telling the truth, but they have influential voices, and algorithms tend to like those voices more than calm journalistic voices. So this is, of course, it's a structural thing. It's not the result of the fact that the communication systems are more open or more democratic to regular individuals.
Yeah, some people call it infotainment, which is more or less this podcast also. But Roberta, I have a question about the things that you research.
We hope for that. We want to be
fun. We want to be cool. I mean, this is less structured than many other products already, but Roberta, you mentioned the business models of the medias and stuff, and I was also captured by some news that happened recently in Argentina about there was a leakage. That was an international consortium of journalists that realized that the Wagner Group and some other Russian agencies were spreading misinformation amongst many countries in the world. Argentina was one of them. And it was a very stingy operation, only $500,000 or something. You say, man, don't be so miserable. Put at least some more money if you want to do effect, So they basically were campaigning against Milei when Milei was
a
pro-Ukraine.
When he was a candidate or was already a president?
He was a candidate, and he was a strong supporter of Ukraine because he was following whatever the US was doing at the moment. Biden was back then in government. That changed, of course, but the news broke out just now. Now you will say Milei is more, if anything, aligned with the US, which seems to be more aligned with the Russians, or we don't know. But the guy used this news that basically said that the Russians paid some media to publish pieces of news of authors that didn't existed. And then, of course, when this piece of news was discovered by a journalist, the president said, you see, these are all a bunch of scumbags, all liars. And what I think is that these media that publish this fake news, probably they just saw the bug and they said, you know what, we are struggling with whatever, bring it on. And do you think that also the precariousness of the new status of journalists with social media and all of the rest encourages these type of practices?
Absolutely. But if I understood, what happened is that the media, the official, let's say, the news media amplified
published
the
directly.
Fake news that the disinformation that have been disseminated that have been created by the Russian.
They paid the news, and this was supposedly hired by an intermediary who went to the news and gave them, okay, this is an opinion piece. I have $5,000 or whatever. And as a consequence of this, Milei canceled the accreditations of the journalists to the White House that were affiliated with this media.
But they published the news, or they published an opinion piece?
Opinion piece. But then this was used to punish journalists that had nothing to do with this. So you see again this argument of, why should we protect journalism used for the evil reasons, let's say.
I mean, it is like in democracy, no? You have also to protect the point of view of the person that are against democracy. Another paradox. But in this case, what is the failure that is at stake is the failure of the mission, of the public role of journalism, that can be a consequence of the powerful, of the fact that the forces of disinformation and misinformation and foreign manipulation are very, very easily they can use this environment. But also what we often discuss about the CMPF is that, okay, we have to find tools to regulate the platforms and to fight against disinformation, but the best tool is to have information, to have good information, to have the media. And in order to protect the media, you have to take into account all the characteristics of this new era. Also the fact that what you were mentioning before, the marketplace of ideas, the idea that let the market go with all the diverse media forces, and we will have media that are pro-Milei, anti-Milei, and we will have a fair competition of different ideas. This is not always true. There can be a failure from the economic point of view. It's defined a market failure because the market itself cannot guarantee the the level of cannot guarantee financing the media that are a very costly activity. So I think that in this case we should resist from the idea that there is a silver bullet, a solution, just a solution, but use different tools. Public intervention can be good, but what if the public intervention is run by a dictator, or an Orban, a Milei?
Public intervention, you mean enforcement measures?
No, public money to finance the media. Public media, public service media, public money to finance the media. Competition can be also a tool, because at the beginning of this digital era, nobody dared to stand against these powerful companies. And I see that now we entered in a new era. Also, this role of AI companies is a bit more under scrutiny. The European Commission opened an investigation for violation of the competition rules for the use of the media content by the AI companies. And what surprised me is that a very similar lawsuit, very similar proceeding has been opening in Brazil last week. So this means also that not that it is easy, but we are not like we were at the beginning of the century with the development of social media. I mean that there are some tools: competition, regulation, public intervention, but also fostering the birth of a new marketplace of ideas, and maybe the mistakes that have been made in the fast age of the internet. Maybe we have learned some lessons.
What is the capital sin that you will say the main mistake we did during the early eras of the internet?
I don't know. I can give an economic point of view. Maybe Eva has another back, but I think that if we look back to the decision on when for example, Facebook was acquiring Instagram and then WhatsApp and then all these mergers that were cleared without any doubts by the competition authorities, maybe this was a mistake. The newspapers also made a mistake because they went on the internet without any protection, giving all the content for free. I don't know.
I have a few questions about the internet dynamic, but I want to ask you, because now we're talking about why is it necessary to protect journalists, but you actually do that here at the Robert Schuman Center, from the Center of Media Pluralism. Could you tell the audience a little bit of what you do? What are the main priorities, actions you take from the center?
Well, we don't protect journalism directly, but what we do is we do research that is very comprehensive and cross-disciplinary, looking into the conditions for safety of journalists, for media freedom and media pluralism at large. Also, the way we define media pluralism is very broad, because we started with this at the beginning. It's very difficult even to define who is the media, or what is the media today, and what is pluralism today, because we don't have scarcity of information. We have information overload. So, the conditions have profoundly changed in the environment or in the field that we are studying. And so we've been doing this Media Pluralism Monitor for more than a decade now. And we do this research with a network of researchers based in all the countries that we cover. And this is entire EU plus EU candidate countries. And
so a Media Pluralism Monitor is basically a tool that says such country has a number. I don't know, what is the scoring, 1 to 10?
Not that simple. So we did start with scoring the countries a few years ago. But the idea is actually to produce a risk score that is more nuanced and granular and grounded in real strong empirical contextual policy assessment.
Okay.
The idea was first to look, so we are looking at different dimensions. We are looking at fundamental rights in relation to media freedom and media pluralism. So what is the situation with journalist safety? Are journalists safe to do their job? Meaning, are they economically safe, physically, digitally safe?
Okay.
Do we have proper structural conditions to ensure freedom of expression, access to information as fundamental rights, and similar things? And then there is the market dimension that has evolved tremendously over these last 10 years. I'm not even sure if we kind of dig deeper into that. I'm not even sure whether there is a market for the core, the essence of journalism that we need in democracy, and that's investigative reporting, or we need to think of a profoundly different business or economic models to sustain that kind of democracy-serving journalism. And then the monitor also looks into the dimension of political independence, of the newsroom, but also in the way the very system or the structure of the media can be used or misused by politicians to influence the outputs, and social inclusiveness, which is not less relevant. And this is something that I also mentioned at the beginning. It's about how representative media are in terms of organizational structure, but also then in the content. And media literacy and many other issues are covered. It's we're very proud of this project because, first of all, because of the network of researchers that we're collaborating with. It's fantastic to have that network, because that way you can also...
Is Europe and beyond?
Well, it's Europe, so it's EU and candidates.
Okay.
We've tested it, or it was tested a little bit in Australia and South Korea, also in Brazil, but it's very much based on European standards. So if it wants to be implemented elsewhere, it needs to be tailored a little bit. But it's an amazing also tool to decolonize, if you want, the concepts that are heavily used in this field of research, but were defined predominantly in the West. But nowadays they don't even work for West, so we need to be more inclusive in kind of redefining them in that context.
Interesting. And who is the worst performing, top 3? Or the best performing? Let's start with the best.
The best for a long time, among the best for a very long time, was Germany.
Wow.
And this is, no longer the case.
No longer the case. Wow.
Yeah, there have been a lot of struggles with freedom of expression in Germany lately. So, also the assessment is indicating some of these struggles.
Then, number 2.
But
we don't rank them this way.
I mean, there is a general ranking with an average of all this area that Iva explained. And the number 2 and number 3, now I don't remember precisely, but normally the Nordic countries perform better, like Denmark, the Netherlands, the Baltic ones. But it also very much depends on the area, because, for example, fundamental protection area is different from, for example, from the point of view of concentration of the market. Even the best performing countries are have some risks. But it is easier to say who are the usual suspects. The worst.
Who's the worst?
I can take a guess. Hungary number one.
Yeah, Hungary number one in the European Union countries. Yes,
for sure. I cannot guess number two, but I guess that in the top three must be Italy. Or not really?
Actually,
No?
not, because Italy.
The problem is that you guys over complain about the situation in Italy, the Italians.
I mean,
the president doesn't take interviews.
Allora, let's talk of Italy.
Here we go.
Italy has, actually, the Italian case was at the very center of the concerns at European Union level since the Berlusconi case, a media tycoon that entered directly into the political scene and was elected and had the longest government of the Italian history. So this is, of course, something that was at the very center of all the discussion at European Union level on the media and in Italy as well. But Italy has a very peculiar situation, being the place of birth of Roman law and Machiavelli and everything, that we, on the paper, we have laws that are often perfect. So the problem is that, considering that we assess the legal situation and the real consequences, there is a difference. Now, Italy is not well positioned in the MPM ranking because it's in the middle of the ranking, in the middle of the ranking, and it is not good for a country that is among the founders of the European community. Italy is very far from Germany, France, Spain, so nothing to be proud of. But the fundamental rights, the fundamental protection part is in better conditions than in other countries. We don't have a law on an effective law on conflict of interest. We have a very bad situation of public service media. We have a very, very, very bad situation on social inclusiveness when it comes to gender equality in the media. We, as Italy, but it is not among the worst, the top three, the worst three countries. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. And you talked about also one of the measurings, like safety, something like that, right? Like it means you post that you don't get insulted, something like that, or you do something. And because, for example, I'm again seeing from the Argentinian lens. Milei, sometimes he hates, for example, Lali Esposito, an artist. He's the center of his hate, and he's very, very nasty and aggressive, to a point that if you say something against the president, he will call you horrible names. And then you got an army of trolls behind you. Did you, for example, did the Center of Media Pluralism got some haters already? People getting angry about scorings, countries?
Yes.
That's good.
We
need haters.
Yeah,
they make us grow.
Case,
Okay.
Until a certain point.
With Hungary, actually. People were not happy. Politicians, I guess, were not happy with our results, and then their trolls were trying to discredit some of our work. This was the strategy. It's a usual strategy. And it's also a strategy that has been applied to journalists. So, again, when we started with the MPM, with the Media Pluralism Monitor, at the beginning, so in 2012, then 2013, doing some pilot implementations and so on, but also in the early years of the Media Pluralism Monitor, we didn't have a variable, so a question, because the monitor is ultimately a questionnaire that is very comprehensive, composed both of legal, economic, and social political variables that are then addressed or assessed, answered by the country teams. But without bothering you with methodology, I'm saying this because until 2017, so for the first, let's say, 4 or 5 years of the monitor, we didn't have a variable, we didn't have a question on killings of journalists, because we assumed that journalists, at least their safety, life safety, is no matter of conversation in the EU. Of course, when journalists are reporting from war zones, they are endangered. But if they are just doing journalism, regular daily journalism in the EU, they're not going to get killed. This was the assumption. It was a wrong assumption, because in 2017, a journalist was killed in Malta just because she was doing journalism, Daphne Caruana Galizia. And so this really opened our eyes as researchers, but it also opened the eyes of policymakers, and it really raised the awareness about the difficulty and lack of safety in which journalists live and work today in the EU. And so not only that she was killed in the most horrible way, so they literally blew her up in front of her house, in front of her son, by placing a bomb under her car, in an EU member state. Not only that, but the reason why she was leaving the house at that moment was because she received a phone call from the bank. They invited her to come because her accounts were supposed to be frozen, because she was sued by, I don't want to say wrong, by one of the ministers in then government of Malta. And at the time she died, she had 40 lawsuits against her by the most prominent people in Malta, mostly politicians, many of them politicians. And then back at the time, there was a law in Malta by which her family inherited those lawsuits, even after she was killed.
Jeez.
So this was changed. But imagine this situation. This is EU member state. And it went under the radar because we were not dealing with those. No one was dealing with those issues. And Malta is a tiny island in the south that even when you have the map of Europe, you don't even see it. So when we were designing our maps for the MPM, we had to artificially enlarge Malta to make it visible, because we produce maps of risks. So we give colors to countries based on the risk level. So this is just to tell you, how, going back again to this self-destruction, or, how do we progress as a humanity, or do we regress? I mean, this really shows a lot of regression in the field of safety. And then, so this is basic, like life safety. But digital safety that you opened with is another new area of exploration. So, for example, there is an extreme or significant use of deepfakes of generative AI. We've seen this case with Grok, where women, especially very young girls, were undressed, and almost anyone can use this technology nowadays. And it can be really, really damaging, because by placing women or female journalists into this situation of deepfake, which is fake, deepfake pornography, which is fake, but it's still pornography, it still affects you, it still potentially has this negative effect of silencing you, because you're not just a journalist, you're also a mother, someone's daughter, friend.
I think we have still not learned to cope with the effects of the internet so far, but I'm a bit wary of your time, Roberta. What is your constraint? You need to leave now?
Yeah.
Okay, then we do very quickly the thing that the strangers like the most from this show, and that is the strangest fact of the week. So, Roberta, we start with you in case you need to leave. Normally, it's me, the host, starting, but now, what's your strangest fact that you saw this week?
It is too easy. It is too easy, maybe starting with Trump, but I was really surprised by this idea to put the president's picture on a limited number of passports. They issued a limited series of passports with Trump's image, because nothing is surprising in these times with the U.S. presidency, but this is I see like a sign of how can I say, hubris, let's say, using a a Greek term, and I also think that many people that maybe will rush to have this one of these passports, maybe in a few months, few years, they will decide that maybe it was not that a good idea.
Imagine you need to renew the passport and then you have this guy's face like for years. It's terrible.
I mean, passport is an institutional thing, is the state, is not the person,
Definitely,
even though
definitely.
it was a dead, famous, very important person, the person that saved the world, and this is not the case. But okay,
You know,
this surprised me.
No, it's a very surprising, and it's something I didn't know. Which this part of the show is also to bring to the attention some things lost in the news cycle. I'm going to volunteer my fact, which is I don't know if you've seen this stuff, which is the guy in the shooting in the White House, correspondence dinner, became very
just continues with his dinner.
continued eating his salad. And that to me was incredibly funny and incredibly strange. Because of course eating a salad in the middle of a shooting is not great. Apparently the guy was a clean freak, so he didn't want to get germs by throwing himself on the ground, and he also was enjoying the show, allegedly. He's manager of models and stuff like that. So, and what is your strangest fact, Iva?
He evolved for these strange times in which we live. Honestly, I failed with this
Why?
task. Because, I've been looking around after you sent us this task to look for like the strangest thing of the week, and I thought,
You
wow,
saw nothing strange this
my
week?
tolerance to strange.
Yes, that's the point. That's
exactly.
the point
So
of
nothing feels strange anymore because
yeah.
we live in such a strange world. So I couldn't find anything
on your
satisfying
and on
to
your daily
showcase
life,
on-
nothing
yes.
either.
I don't know. Maybe some things would be strange to other people, but they didn't really feel strange enough to me. So yeah, I
So
failed.
you
Even
have
from your kids.
Well, the fact that I failed is very strange.
That's a good one. So thank you very much for your time here. It has been fantastic as always. But now we need to really score the strange facts. So I'm gonna give Roberta, this is a high score, Roberta, an 8 for me. I'm gonna give my fact a 6.
Okay.
Iva, I'm sorry, you get a 1. This may be the lowest score other than Eric Jones, who puts himself a 0. Roberta, you can qualify.
Do I score myself too, or
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
of
two
course,
of you?
of course, of course.
Okay. But I liked Eva's failure because
you.
it's a sign of
you-
the time, in a way. Let's. I don't have the 7.
How do you do this?
You had to push.
Ah, okay.
There you go. Wow, Eva, you have a 7, so you have now.
No,
Okay, I
have
think that in my
You put
case.
yourself a 10?
10. Of course, you remember Puff Diddy or whatever when he said when he
Okay,
thanked
I
to himself.
give an 8 to you.
That's
And
impressive.
I'm embarrassed in in.
In
I'm
self-qualifying
cheating
yourself?
in this task.
Okay.
Amazing. So I guess 10 plus 7 plus 1, you get an 18. Roberta, 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 10. I'm failing on the arithmetics. And me, I get a 9. I think that the problem with the strange-o-meter is that it is difficult to know who wins with so much numbers. Who won?
We're bad at math.
Eva is 27. Okay.
Okay.
No, this
No,
is a
Eva is
1
18.
and a 7, and this
18.
is a 10.
I'm
So
18.
18, 17, so 25. I think you won.
Yeah.
Grande, Roberta. So you get to choose the strangest prize. Choose the strangest prize on the table.
Okay.
Which is,
Delicious.
we have, there you go, a car, a little angel,
Tough decision.
the pirate.
Eva.
Amazing. Eva, you get the less strangest prize.
Well, I'll take this macchinina for my kids.
Grande. Thank you very much for coming once again. It has been great
Thank you
speaking
for having
with you.
us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Leo. It
We
has
could
been
go
very-
on like this forever.